Okay, my name is Tatiana Demilovskaya. I'm the regional director of Canada, Eurasia, Russia, Vancouver chapter. There are some people who doesn't know me, so good morning. So a couple of words about why we're here today. The Canada-Kazakhstan Business Council Mining Working Group. This meeting we decided to organize here in Vancouver for the first time since the Canada-Kazakhstan Business Council was established. The Canada-Kazakhstan Business Council, or KCBC, is initiated by our organization in 2015 for fostering bilateral ties in economy, technology, and trade between Canada and Kazakhstan. KCBC broadly involves both private and public sectors and co-chaired by the flagship companies in the mining industry in Cameco and Kazatomprom. This is the first time, as I mentioned, that we are organizing this event in Vancouver on the margins of AME Roundup, and Jonathan Buchanan will speak on this. And a couple of words about who are present today at this meeting. The co-chairs of the working group are Darren Klink, just to the left of me. He's the president and director of Arras Minerals. He is a co-chair on Canadian side, and Yerlan Galiyev, who is online with us right now. He is the chief executive officer of joint stock company National Geological Survey of the Republic of Kazakhstan. He is a co-chair on the Kazakhstan side. I would like to welcome our Kazakhstan guests, newly appointed ambassador of the Republic of Kazakhstan to Canada, His Excellency Dalibek Huseinov, and the Chancellor of the Embassy, Anwar Alibekov.
Just
okay.
Yeah.
So everyone will be able to talk to our guests in the intermission. We also have Kazakhstan delegation visiting here. So we have them here on this side. So Kazatomprom delegation. Aknur is our close friend and assistant on the organizing of the working group. And with her today is Jazira Abderrahman, Ruslan Bektanov, Timur Uzibayev, Armanbek Umeragli, Berik Bukmarov. Welcome to Vancouver.
thank you so much.
I would like to express our gratitude to the sponsors of KCBC. This year it's Cameco Corporation, and our assistant in organizing of all the working groups that we are running this time is Kazatomprom and the Embassy of Kazakhstan to Canada. I also would like to express our great appreciation to Lords and Company Business Law. This is the company which helped us to get this very beautiful room with all the equipment installed. So thanks to them as well. And we also have our interpreter, Natalia Petrova, online with us. Thank you so much for helping today. So now a little bit of the technical and household comments. This event is run in Zoom meeting format, so everyone who hears and understands me speaks English and sitting online right now, I ask you please mute your computers to avoid any background noises, because this event is recording, and we would like it to be sharp and clear when we see it again. Everything which is happening in this room will be translated into English. So if our guests from Kazakhstan need translation, you can connect to your telephone, please do it, because there will be also opportunity to hear the Russian translation online, which will be provided remotely. So you know how to use the optional languages. If you go into the bottom of your screen right now, you can see the little globe icon. You need to click it and choose the language that you need. If you don't need a translation, just stay on the regular mode like you are right now. We also will have the Q&A session and ask participants who would like to ask question online, please type them into chat. We will be reading these questions, translating it, and discussing your questions and answering them. If we will not be able to answer your question now during this event, then we will collect them all and answer later on if there will be a necessity to elaborate on them. So that's basically all I wanted to say. And now let's start our event. I would like to introduce the moderator of the meeting. He is also wearing, as you know, a hat of the co-chair of this group on the Canadian side. Darren Lee, he is president and director of Arras Mineral. And he's also maintaining volunteer position as the national director of Canada-Kazakhstan Chamber of Commerce. And in 2023, he was appointed to be the honorary consul of the Republic of Kazakhstan to British Columbia. Darren, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Tatiana, and welcome everyone. Thank you very much for coming, and a special thank you for all those that are dialing in. I know it's quite late in Kazakhstan. So we very much appreciate you being online at this late hour to join us and make this sort of event very much all-inclusive and very well attended. So thank you for that. We are going to start off this morning with some very interesting and insightful keynote speakers. And in fact, the first one that I have on my list just arrived in the door. Perfect time. And so we'll let Aaron kind of get settled, but I'll just do a brief introduction to Aaron Campbell, who is founding partner of MONETA Capital Partners and the chair of the CECC Vancouver chapter. Aaron is a founding partner of MONETA Partners. She's a capital markets expert with over 2 decades of hands-on experience in corporate finance and entrepreneurship. She focuses primarily on growth stage technology, energy, and industrial companies that are preparing for the next phases of capital access. Aaron specializes in projects requiring complex financial solutions involving multiple stakeholders, private equity, and venture capital. Please join me in welcoming Aaron to say a few words this morning. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you, Tatiana. Thank you, everyone who's joined us on the phone and everyone who is actually able to be here on time in person. So well done. I won't tell you about my exciting adventure of getting into a wrong Uber and going to Coquitlam almost this morning. Apparently there were 2 errands getting into Toyotas this morning at the airport. So we sorted it out, and I had a lovely young man escort me to downtown. So it all worked out. So I was thinking about this event on my way to the airport in Edmonton this morning, and remembering some of the events we've had over the last 10 or 12 years, alongside of AMBC and the many partners that we've had from Central Asia who've come and met with the leaders of the mining community here in Canada, the leaders of mining communities and the metallurgical communities, the EPC contractors. And we have been really fortunate for this organization to have had such exposure to just entrepreneurial drivers who believe that responsible, thoughtful resource extraction is not just necessary, but can be done and can be done now. And I think all of us can think about examples of projects that we are either involved with or we're close to, where the teams are exploring and developing and building, in some cases, those opportunities in a way that we wish they could get more profile for. We wish they could get more attention for being both responsible economic stewards as well as responsible resource stewards. And so, one of the great things about this event has always been the sharing of information and knowledge between different parts of the world, and those of us in British Columbia and those of us in Canada. And I hope that today we will continue that great great knowledge exchange that has been such a center point of this event and also the AMBC event. So I'd also like to give a special welcome to His Excellency. So thank you very much for making the long journey from Ottawa. You can now see why people love to live in Vancouver so much. Tatiana, you and Taranjeek always for the work you do to put these events together for us. Jonathan, it's lovely to see you again. And back to you, Darren. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Erin. Thank you very much for those kind words of welcome. I'd like to now call on His Excellency Ambassador Kusanayev to say a few words on behalf of the Republic of Kazakhstan. But before I do, just a particular personal note, because this is the third year in a row that the Kazakh embassy has been represented here at the AMBC conference. I'm not aware of many other diplomats representing foreign countries that have come to the AMBC Roundup conference over these last 3 years. And as the president and director of 100% focused Kazakhstan exploration company focusing on critical minerals, it means a lot. And I think it sends a very strong message to the opportunities that exist between Kazakhstan and Canadian companies that are continuing to grow. We have one of the recent entrants, Teck Resources, represented here today, who is partnering with Arras on exploration for critical minerals as we move forward into 2024, 2025. And it's these important partnerships that I think are continuing to grow and we can build on. And so we very much appreciate you and your team being here, Ambassador. Ambassador Kusanayev is a career diplomat and has developed a strong expertise in multilateral cooperation, security, trade negotiations, and foreign policy. The ambassador joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Kazakhstan in 2000 as attaché third secretary, and in 2004, he served as the third secretary of the Embassy of the Republic of Kazakhstan in the Kingdom of Belgium. He then became the head of division for the International Department of the Ministry of Industry and Trade, and in 2009, he received the post in the presidential administration of the Republic of Kazakhstan. Ambassador Kusanayev also served his country as deputy heads of mission of Kazakhstan to the United Kingdom and the United States between 2014 and 2019. And before he was appointed to Ambassador to Canada, he served as the head of the Foreign Policy Department at the Presidential Administration in Astana. Mr. Kusanayev is a graduate of the Yukon State University, as well as the Eurasian National University and the University of Stirling in the United Kingdom. Please join me in welcoming Ambassador Kusanayev.
Thank you very much, Darren, for this opportunity to be here, and of course to our Eurasian Chamber of Commerce for organizing this event and continue the support for Kazakhstan just to advance the ties between two countries. As you know, the Kazakhstan at the moment has started a real transformation. We are building the reforms of the so-called new Kazakhstan. We're working very hard to and fairly debt-free domestic income, grow the size of our middle class, and provide equal opportunity for all in Kazakhstan. And today, our economy just demonstrates very good growth. In 2023, the GDP per capita rose from $11,500 to $13,300. Kazakhstan exported goods valued at $65 billion and attracted almost $27 billion in direct foreign investments. Today, the mining sector remains the priority for our government. The mining industry brings 17% of GDP, and hard minerals and metals make up approximately 16% of the Kazakhstan's export by value. Kazakhstan has significant reserves of minerals, and many of which the country is one of the world's leading suppliers. For instance, Kazakhstan is the world's largest uranium producer. My country holds a quarter of the world production of titanium sponge. And my country is the second largest chromium producer in the world. The country also has the world's 8th largest iron ore reserves with 12.5 billion tons. And the second largest manganese ore reserves estimated at 600 million tons. While we also have deposits of minerals such as gold, silver, and silicon. Despite the large number of deposits currently being developed, according to experts, the subsoil of Kazakhstan still has a sufficiently large potential for new discoveries. The World Bank estimates that there are over 5,000 unexplored deposits still present in Kazakhstan. It's pretty much a lot of potential for Canadian companies. Kazakhstan is open to cooperate with Canadian companies in this field. And there are already examples of cooperation in rare earth metals, including the agreement on the strategic alliance focusing on exploration for critical minerals in Arras region that was recently signed by Teck and Arras Minerals. Overall, Kazakhstan is ready to provide its Canadian partners the rights to explore and develop more than 60 deposits of precious and non-ferrous metals. Kazakhstan and some other companies are interested in not just extraction but processing. Therefore, Kazakhstan advocates a pragmatic approach, investments and technologies in exchange for minerals. In the State of the Nation address on September 1st, my President Tokayev set the course to create a favorable and flexible regulatory and fiscal environmental for investors in the manufacturing industry. I just will underline what he said. He announced that investors will be exempted from taxes and other compulsory payments for the first 3 years of their investment. Preferential rights to use the subsoil will be granted to investors who undertake geological exploration at their own expense. Time and procedures for projects approvals will be halved by introducing comprehensive state expertise and full digitalization of the business process. The code on subsoil and subsoil use has entered into force, which corresponds to our international approaches. The principles of the first application has already been implemented. The state subsoil funds management program has been adopted and free access to geological information has been provided. We are doing it through the single platform KazNedra. There is a website, minerals.gov.kz, that combines and integrated all existing information system subsoil use. This platform will facilitate comprehensive service support to investors in a single window format. I also admit that more than half of Kazakhstan's mining, processing, and smelting enterprises currently need modern equipment. Unfortunately, Kazakhstan does not have its own mining machinery industry and relies heavily on foreign inputs. This is another area where we can work together with Canadian companies. Canada firms should explore trade opportunities in used and refurbished equipment, as well as in turnkey project management services. The current geopolitical context, which is not so easy at the moment, has demonstrated the importance of our cooperation. As such, the embassy is committed to creating the institutional conditions necessary for establishing direct collaboration with Canadian companies. In this regard, I would like to inform that the 6th meeting of the Kazakhstan-Canada Business Council will be held in Toronto in March 3rd, 6th, 2024. This is an excellent opportunity for us to implement our shared plans and visions. We invite all to join to this event. I just would like once again to underline, as ambassador of Kazakhstan to Canada, I am absolutely open to any initiative, to any contacts with business from Canada. I'm ready just to work with you closely to open the door to Kazakhstan market. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. A lot of opportunities to continue to grow mine, and of course, very similar in terms of countries as well, in terms of size and opportunities. So terrific. I'd like to now call on Jonathan Buchanan, Vice President with the AMBC Association. Jonathan's been a long-time executive with AMBC and is responsible for advancing policy initiatives that impact mineral exploration and development for the Association of Mineral Exploration here in British Columbia. These initiatives are wide-ranging and include permitting, reconciliation, land access, use, geoscience, science, and financial incentives, among many other topics. And Mr. Buchanan continues to help drive the 3-year strategic plan and work done by ABC. He tells me that where there's more than 6,000 people today here for the conference in Vancouver, which is bringing technical professionals, investment professionals from all over. And so, Jonathan, the floor is yours. Thank you.
All right. Thanks very much, Darren, and hello to people who are joining us online. It's my pleasure to represent the Association for Mineral Exploration today. As Darren mentioned, we have 6,000 people in town for AME Roundup, and although most people are from BC, we have representatives from about 40 countries on 6 continents, so it's truly an international conference. And I thank Darren for his display at the Korshaka last year at Roundup.
From Kazakhstan.
Yeah, well, that was a success.
Absolutely, yes.
And of course, thank His Excellency, the Ambassador, for attending Roundup and for showing that spirit of international collaboration. As an association, we were started in 1912. I wasn't here at the time, but I understand it was just as rainy and foggy in January and through April as it is now. And 40 years ago, we started this small collaboration between the BC Canadian government and what was then known as the BC and Yukon Chamber of Mines, now AME, called Roundup. And what we found is that since Vancouver is a global center of excellence for exploration, there was an appetite to showcase exploration from around the world. And what that means is, of course, at Roundup, you can see core, you can see rock from projects in about 20 different countries. But throughout the year, it also means that Vancouver provides a lot of the legal services, financial services, just looking left and right to Jonathan and Aaron. And also companies big and small, so ranging from junior companies to Teck Resources Limited, which is our patron sponsor of the conference. And as a member-driven association, as Darren mentioned, we have a 3-year strategic plan. And that plan was developed essentially by the members for the members. We had about 7 workshops, and we found they all had similar interests. So certainty for permitting in British Columbia, certainty regarding mineral tenure, and so some similar issues as Kazakh government is facing. And also recognizing the role that if we are to develop these critical minerals, we need solid public engagement. And so part of that is collaborating with Minerals Ed that provides education and resources to elementary and high school students. Part of that is supporting the post-secondary institutions, but also part of that is those everyday conversations. It used to be said that you could start up a junior mining company in any restaurant in downtown Vancouver. I'd extend that to pretty much any commuter bus, any train, and Chad knows every hockey rink in the city. It's a bit of a secret how involved the city is in mineral exploration. So we need to get that message out to the world. One final remark for we get into the depths of the webinar is that with, of course, critical minerals and precious metals use being so essential to our everyday lives, it's essential to have that collaboration. So between governments and between companies. In BC, it involves a close working relationship, a close and honest working relationship with the provincial government and the federal government. And part of the role of an industry association is in liaising with its members and providing that feedback, so support when needed, but also recommendations when needed to the government. So on the screen was that's our entire strategic plan. It looks essentially looks like a bit of an infographic, but it's really focusing on these key areas. So making sure the members are engaged, making sure that relationships are developed with governments, be them local, provincial, federal, Indigenous, having operational excellence. So having events like Roundup and for this organization, working groups to keep that flow of ideas going throughout the years. And of course, a key pillar for AME is Indigenous relations and reconciliation. So having conversations with Indigenous leaders, helping members get acquainted with colonial legacies and addressing them. And of course, collaborating with Indigenous peoples to make those world-class mining industries that will contribute to those critical minerals. And as I mentioned, the public engagement. So making sure the public knows what we're doing, providing honest information about mineral exploration and mines. And I look forward to future conversations with the Kazakh working group and with the government in terms of how we can collaborate, because as in this geopolitical climate, it's not just one jurisdiction that's going to produce critical minerals and precious metals and other resources. It's pretty much all jurisdictions worldwide. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Jonathan. Thank you. Well done. Absolutely. Collaboration, I think, is a theme of today's discussions. There's no doubt. So we're now going to shift gears and move to one of two panel discussions. So we have two panels with a brief break in the middle. And before we shift to that, I also wanted to acknowledge the attendance of a representative from Kazakh Invest visiting us here from the Washington, D.C. office, Washington, D.C. Embassy, Galmazan Mateyev at the end of the table. Thank you very much, Galmazan, for joining. Galmazan and Kazakh Invest have been very supportive of Arras Minerals over the last 2 to 3 years as well with our investment in Kazakhstan, and another resource, I think, for those companies and businesses that are interested in continuing to learn about opportunities that exist in Kazakhstan. So thank you for coming, Galmazan. The first panel that we're going to kick off here is really it's titled Effective Management of Natural Mineral Resources. And I think you'll see in terms of the panel of speakers that we have here over the next hour or so, we're going to cover all the bases. We're going to cover the latest and what's happening in Kazakhstan, an overview of the Canadian approach. We've got a special guest visiting us here from the Yukon, who's going to talk about technology and how that's being utilized to manage the licensing and the permitting, et cetera, in the Yukon. Which of course is, I know, something that the Kazakhstan is continuing to work on and enhance as well. And then we're going to get a very important update in what is probably one of the more important minerals over the last 2 to 3 months in particular, with the rising price and the commodity, that is the uranium industry in Kazakhstan, through a presentation on that from Timur Kazatomprom. So I'd like to kick things off by introducing Yerlan Galayev. Yerlan is the CEO of JSC, the National Geological Survey. He is also a geologist. He is currently serving as the chairman of the board at JSC of the Republic of Kazakhstan since July of 2022, and is at the forefront of driving the development and management of the state infrastructure for collecting, storing, and providing open access to geological information. Please join me in welcoming Yerlan, who is dialing in late at night in Kazakhstan. So we very much appreciate you for joining us. Yerlan, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Darren, very much for this great introduction. Good morning, dear ladies and gentlemen. So I think my presentation is not opening. I cannot see it on the screen. Is there any technical issue right now?
We've got the presentation on the screen here.
Okay,
And I
great.
think
It's okay.
yeah. And are we advancing it, or is Yerlin advancing it?
No,
Okay,
it's okay. I can tell when to switch slides.
Okay, yeah.
It's
Yes,
not
the
showing
first
up on
slide-
the Zoom call. On the Zoom call, somebody needs
Oh.
to double click on the screen. Yeah.
Okay, stand by. Thank you very much for that. We'll just see if we can adjust here and then redo the share. Get the how's that, folks?
Now it
Yeah,
works.
you can see.
Very good. All right, Yerlin, over to you. You can advise when you'd like to advance the slides. Please take it away.
Yes, we can start from the second slide. So it's actually, I wanted to express my deep gratitude to the organizers of today's meeting, to CECC, and I also am very glad to see many familiar faces from the Canadian mining community, from the Kazakhstani mining community. And I wanted just briefly to cover what is happening in the geology and in the subsoil use environment here in Kazakhstan. The first slide is for the chemistry geeks. It's the periodical table of elements. And here you can see that we like to say in Kazakhstan that we have all of the periodic table under our feet here in Kazakhstan, which is true, of course. Maybe those elements are not as rich, many as in other places on the planet, but still we have the whole table here. And here you can see that there is a upper table, and there is a lanthanoids, which is the lanthanoid itself, cerium, and other elements, which are called rare earths. Those famous rare earth elements that are nowadays very important and are seen as critical in many countries, in US, in European Union, in Canada too, I think. So and I wanted to say that for those critical minerals that are identified as critical, for instance, in US, by US Geological Survey, they identify 30 types of minerals as critical. And from those 19 types of those, 16 of those are considered as are produced in Kazakhstan, and from the 30 types identified as critical in European Union, 19 are produced in Kazakhstan. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is the short, I think that His Excellency Ambassador, he greatly, substantially covered our national reserves, and he named that we are, of course, leaders in reserves in some of those minerals for all the world. But on this table, you can see that we highlighted those, the critical ones. For instance, the natural graphite, which is, I know, used in gas turbines, which is used for the alloys because it is very high heat resistant. So there are three fields in Kazakhstan. One of them is being produced by someone, by some subsoil user, and is contracted, and two of them are in reserve. So they are free for the new investors to start exploration or production. Next slide, please. On this slide, you can see the major producers of those critical raw materials. Of course, there are the big names as Kazakhmys, as Ugar Metallurgic Plant, as ERG, KazZinc, Kazphosphate, and others. And here I just wanted to name the few, like for instance, for the bismuth, we have the Rieder-Sokolny deposit, which is being produced by KazZinc, which has substantial amounts of bismuth reserve. Also, we have the Karoba 255, which is produced by Karoba deposit, which is produced by Karoba 255, which has substantial tungsten and beryllium deposits. Just to name the few. Next slide, please. So currently, Kazakhstani state is financing some of the prospecting works for rare and rare earth metals. This work started in 2022 and it will be finalized by the end of 2024. We're currently working on 12 projects. So here on the map, you can see that they are scattered all over the map, all over the Kazakhstan. And again, just to name the interesting one, which is the Mirolюбов scheme for the rare earth metals in eastern part of Kazakhstan. You can see it right down the river town. So the Mirolюбов object is interesting because there are some, we already have some results. And there are some dikes there which are geochemically enriched, and they're enriched with rare earths, for instance, with lithium, with rubidium, cesium, and the concentration in these dikes is very high. It's 1.8 thousand grams per ton, so it's not 1.8 grams, it's 1.8 thousand grams per ton. Of course, it's dikes, they are very enriched to understand that, but I still think that it's an interesting and very important criteria for the further interesting prospect, for the further exploration and for some interesting prospects in this area. Next slide, please. Thank you. Also, state is currently funding some scientific works, so they are more general, more covering like big areas. And one of them that I wanted to mention specifically is the geodynamic and metallogenic analysis of southern Kazakhstan for the possibility of identifying rare metal and rare earth mineralization. So I mean, in the audience, there are lots of my colleagues from Kazatomprom, and Kazatomprom, of course, currently is also working substantially for the possibility of identifying rare earth mineralization on their fields, for the uranium fields. And I think that the southern Kazakhstan could be an interesting province for those kind of exploration. Of course, we will be continuing this work, and we'll be doing that with the scientific centers in Kazakhstan, but also with the international community. For now, we are discussing the cooperation opportunities with USGS, with GTK, with the Finnish Geological Survey, with BJS, British Geological Survey, and others. Next slide, please. Let's switch for the lithium. You know, lithium is one of the key components for the green energy transition, and is considered nowadays as one of the very precious and critical mineral. And so for the state prospecting works for lithium projects, we have identified several areas, and I wanted to name 3 of them. First is Kalbanarim ore zone in the eastern Kazakhstan. So the Kalbanarim ore zone is interesting because it wasn't covered by some substantial mapping in the past. So it's mostly covered with 200,000 scale mapping, and currently state is thinking about and is projecting to start mapping for 50,000 scale in Kalbanarim ore zone. Also, we plan to start 50,000 scale mapping on Bayankoyskoye Square in the southern part of Kazakhstan, closer to the Tanshan mountains. And also just wanted to name the Aral sedimentary basin. Aral Sea used to be a big sea, and because of some natural and technogenic disaster, it became almost gone extinct. But those huge areas that used to be seabed, nowadays they are like deserts. But because the Aral Sea used to be a salty sea, so now the areas that used to be a seabed, nowadays they are desert. But they can be a very interesting prospect for the brine lithium exploration. So state plans to do some geochemical research, some geophysical research in this area to identify possibilities for the brine lithium production in this area. Also, I just wanted to mention that, as you know, Kazakhstan is an oil and gas producing country, one of the biggest one in the world, and in some areas of Western Kazakhstan, in the Atara Oblast, in Western Kazakhstan Oblast, for the as a byproduct of the oil and gas production, we have identified a huge lithium concentration in those wells. So that also could be interesting possibility. Next slide, please. So we have explored some lithium reserves in Kazakhstan. Mostly the exploration was done during the Soviet times, in the 70s, in the 80s, and all of those deposits are in the eastern Kazakhstan. But this is the hard rock lithium, and here on this table you can see the amount of reserves and the average content of those fields, and you also can see the amount of reserves. Those reserves are in the GKZ reserves classification system, which is the Soviet one. And starting from the 1st of January 2024, we're switching to the internationally acknowledged reserves classification system, which is called KazRC, and it's based on the CRISCO system. So next slide, please. And switching to the subsoil management systems in Kazakhstan. So, and the ambassador mentioned, of course, we have this state subsoil fund program, which basically covers whole area of Kazakhstan. And on this area, you can see those areas that are covered in gray are actually open and free for the exploration. So anyone can apply for those license blocks. So it's almost 73% of the whole territory. Also, there's about 14% of the territory that is already being produced, and there are already some subsoil users on those areas. There are some, of course, restricted areas as natural parks, state nature reserves, and other lands as waterfronts, major cities, cemeteries, etc. So overall, what I wanted to show with this slide that Kazakhstan has switched to the mining code, which is based on the principle of first come, first serve. And for those gray areas, any investor can come and can apply for the license and can have a permit to start exploration on this principle. Next slide, please. And also, I wanted to talk about geological information, which is for me, as for the geologist, is the most interesting part. And for any investor, the key aspect for the decision making to start investing to exploration or to production, to producing, is the access to the like stable and to the access to the true geological information. So in order to fulfill this part, National Geological Survey, together with the Ministry for the Digitalization, we're working to build this digital platform for subsoil users, which is called the portal for subsoil users. And the main idea is to become a single window, so that for the investor, for them, they can access this database, they can download some electronic data, they can start some business processes, like I mentioned before, they can apply for some licensing. Also, they can, after when they will become the subsoil user in Kazakhstan, they can provide reports about their activities, about their operation. And also they can do some data analytics using these data to understand the current trends or current, maybe they can analyze some specific area which is interesting for them for the production or for exploration. This platform is, like I said, we're working on that with Ministry for Digitalization, and this platform we've already uploaded more than 54,000 reports to the platform, and by the March, so we hope that by the March of 2024, on PDAC, we can show you this platform, how to use it, how to download the information, and how to apply for the license. Next slide, please. You can see those activities of operation on our national pavilion, which will be on PDAC. So I welcome all of you to see this pavilion. And the last slide, I just wanted to explain what is the role and what is the mission of the National Geological Survey, which is called UGQ in Kazakh language. So our main mission is to provide comprehensive service support to investors, and we have our two major directions, our two major strategical directions. First is to create and manage the state infrastructure for collecting, storing, and provide open access to geological information. And the second one is to create a favorable climate to attract investments in subsoil use. UGQ is working not only with solid minerals in Kazakhstan, but also it's working with groundwater issues, with common minerals, with hydrocarbon raw materials, and with geohazards. The geohazards one has been, I would say, like it wasn't as explored and as researched in Kazakhstan as it should be. So it would be a big focus for us to, because you know, the safety for the mining operation and safety for the general population is one of the key priorities for us, as for Geological Survey and as for the government overall. So that would be all from my side. And I also wanted to say again my deep gratitudes, and also it's almost 12 here in Kazakhstan. So I will be staying with you until the end of this panel session, and after the coffee break, if you will let me, I will kindly ask you that if I can leave, because in the morning we're going to have a big meeting in Ministry of Energy. They're asking us to come for some hydrocarbon reserves questions. And I also wanted to thank Darren, my co-chair, and I wanted for all of us to have interesting conversations today to discuss the possibilities for mining in Kazakhstan. And I hope to see most of you once in Toronto, Canada, on PDAC. Thank you very much, colleagues.
Thank you very much, Yerlin. That was a very good overview, and we've just taken a quick poll here, and we've all given you leave to get some sleep. There's nothing worse than being in an important meeting in the morning and then with the minister and then falling asleep. So thank you very much, and I know many of us will look forward to seeing you in Toronto in a couple of months' time. Thank you for your very insightful presentation and overview. I'd like to now turn the floor over to Jonathan Lotz. And again, a special thanks to Jonathan for hosting us here today. Jonathan is a senior lawyer and the founder of Lotz & Company, specializing in transactional law. And prior to Lotz & Co., Jonathan worked as a partner at international law firm Keenan Blakely LLP, where he headed the firm's Vancouver and corporate securities and mining practices. He works globally throughout many sectors: North, South America, Europe, Asia, Africa, and Oceania. I personally work with him on an initiative in Australia as well, and he is a member of the bars of British Columbia and New York. Jonathan, we'll turn it over to you to talk about Canada-Canadian subsoil.
Thank you very much, Darren. So just an introduction here. You could get the first slide there. If we could move to the next slide. Okay, so the agenda for my presentation is I'll give an overview of mining in Canada, look at mining in British Columbia, which would be the key focus, overview of the British Columbia Mineral Tenure Act. I'll look at changes to the Mineral Tenure Act, and I'll do a brief conclusion on that. If we could get the next slide. Just by way of introduction to mining in Canada, Canada is one of the top producers of minerals and metal worldwide. Sales of 55.5 billion in 2021. It's mining represents hundreds of thousands of jobs in Canada, and roughly 80% of the mineral and metal commodities mined in Canada are exported. The top mining products are potash, uranium, niobium, nickel, cobalt, aluminum, platinum group metals, gold, and diamonds. And the majority of mineral rights in Canada are owned by the Crown, which is the government. If you could get the next slide, please. So mining by jurisdiction. Mining is preliminarily the responsibility of the provinces and territories, and not the federal government, per the division of powers set out in the Constitution Act 1867 and the respective territorial acts in in this case, Yukon, Northwest Territories, and Nunavut. The provincial and territorial governments are responsible for the exploration, development, and extraction of mineral resources and own the majority of the mineral rights in Canada. The statutes we're going to be looking at are the Mineral Tenure Act, the Mineral Title Online, and there are regulations under that, which is the regulation and the online regulation, the Land Act, the Mineral Land Tax Act, the Mining Right of Way Act, the Expropriation Act, and the Forestry Act. Okay, get the next slide. So the Mineral Tenure Act is the main act that concerns staking and recording of mineral claims and is administered by the Mineral Titles Branch of the British Columbia government. In most Canadian jurisdictions and in British Columbia, we use the free miner system, which is often referred to as free entry, which provides for 3 rights: the right to enter lands in pursuit of crown minerals, the right to obtain a mineral claim traditionally by physically staking a claim, and the right to go to lease and mine and produce the minerals discovered on the claim. In British Columbia, a person must be a free miner to record a claim release. And this is different from the concession system used in other parts of the world, where the government seeks the highest purchase or bid price for the rights to explore a particular tract of land. Although the concession system is used in some Canadian jurisdictions, particularly with respect to issuing oil and gas rights and forestry rights. Under the free miner system in British Columbia, free miners are persons or entities that hold a free miner certificate, which can be issued to applicants who are 18 years or older, ordinarily resident in Canada, or a Canadian corporation, or a partnership of persons that can meet the criteria above. If I could get the next slide, please. The pros and cons of the free miner system. For the most part, BC's free miner system has worked well. Some of the pros of the BC's free miner system include certainty of registration. Free miners are entitled to access private property in the pursuit of minerals, and the staking of mineral claims is relatively easy. Some of the cons of the BC's free miner system include that it often neglects the concerns regarding Indigenous rights and the environment. And furthermore, there may be issues where the BC miners claim registered claims without the intention of exploring them. If I could get the next slide. Minerals and placer minerals. The Mineral Tenure Act defines mineral and placer mineral, but for the purpose of this presentation, I'll be focusing on minerals. Minerals have an ordinary meaning under the Mineral Tenure Act and means an ore of metal or natural substance that can be mined, that is in place or position which was originally formed or deposited on talus rock, with a few exceptions. Placer mineral, on the other hand, refers to minerals found in alluvial deposits, which are deposits of sand, gravel, and modern ancient stream beds. Next slide, please. Mineral claims and mining leases. Under the Mineral Tenure Act, a person must be a free miner to be registered as a recorded holder of a mineral claim or mining lease. A mineral claim is a claim to the minerals within an area which is being located or acquired by a method set out in the Mineral Tenure Act regulation. Mineral claims are chattel interests, i.e. an interest in property, and a mineral claim allows the recorded holder to explore for and develop minerals up to a bulk amount of 1,000 tons of ore in a year from each unit of a claim. The second is a mineral lease, which is an interest in land that conveys to the leasee the minerals within and under the leasehold, together with the same rights that a leasehold in the recorded owner of a claim or group of claims. Mining leases contain more rights associated with ownership than mineral claims, which are the production tenures for mining, and move from exploration for mineral to production of minerals, and all requires a mineral claim to be converted to a mining lease. Mining leases are issued according to a survey plan and for a specific term not longer than 30 years. A mining lease is maintained by the payment of annual rent of $20 per hectare. There is no work requirements required for a mining activity. And the term of the lease will only be renewed if the leasee is required for a mining activity and can be renewed for one or more further terms not exceeding 30 years. Work conducted under a mining lease on the commercial level must undergo further approvals under the Mines Act and other legislation. Okay, next slide, please. The Mineral Tenure Act is administered by the Chief Gold Commissioner and one or more gold commissioners who may enter and examine land covered by a mineral title, resolve disputes, and may make orders for claim holders to comply with the Mineral Tenure Act. And if the claim is ignored, the Chief Gold Commissioner may cancel the claim. The Chief Gold Commissioner is also responsible for establishing and maintaining the mineral titles online registry. Next slide, please. The mineral titles online registry is British Columbia's online internet-based electronic mineral system, title administration system that incorporates digital registration of titles and documents, including mineral claims and mining leases. It replaced physical or on-the-ground staking with internet-based electronic map selection process. If I could get the next slide. Mineral titles are split into cells based on different blocks, units, and quarters, and each cell can contain a mineral claim and a placer claim, a mineral claim and a placer lease, a mineral lease or placer claim, etc. A recorded holder of a claim or lease can register a transfer of ownership to another person. An amendment to a claim or lease is not effective until registered, and a person may register documents or notices relating to a mineral title according to regulations. Mineral titles online sought to resolve issues associated with physical staking, naming priority in staking, and to ensure substantial compliance with staking requirements. Get the next slide, please. Keeping mineral title in good standing. Under the Mineral Tenure Act, no exploration, development, or production of minerals or class of minerals may be conducted in certain areas such as federal or provincial parks, provincial heritage property, or such other land as may be determined by the Chief Gold Commissioner. Generally, under the Mineral Tenure Act, the claim or leaseholder must conduct annual work on mineral claim or pay the government annual rent for their mining lease in advance of the next rental year to keep their claim holders in good standing. For the purposes of maintaining a mineral claim in good standing, a recorded holder may make a payment instead of doing exploration and development, and a mineral claim holder may open a portable assessment credit account, which allows the account holder to credit or debit such account when registering technical exploration and development work. Recorded holder of such credits may use their account to facilitate exploration and development required as a consequence for revising claim expiry date or keep the claim in good standing. If I could get the next slide. Entry on land and surface rights. During exploration efforts, a free miner may enter mineral lands located in the province of British Columbia, subject to varying exceptions. Mineral lands includes where minerals or the right to explore, for, develop, and produce minerals is vested in or reserved to the government, including private lands, but generally excludes lands occupied by a building and the land surrounding houses, agricultural land, areas with active mining operations, and protect areas previously mentioned. Free miners must generally provide advance notice to holders of land prior to exploration efforts and will be liable to compensate such holders for loss or damage by or on behalf of the free miner or recorded holder. If a mineral claim holder intends to mine a claim but does not hold the surface rights, the claim holder must compensate the surface rights owner in the amount of the fair market value of the property in the absence of any evidence that there are special factors which give it greater value to the owner. Furthermore, if one owns surface rights in an area but not the subsurface rights, and they need the service for mining operations, then they would negotiate with the subsurface rights holder. Lastly, under the Mineral Right-of-Way Act, a recorded holder may access its mineral tenures by use of existing roads, either privately or publicly owned, and may expropriate such lands for the construction of mining roads or rights of way, subject to paying any required expropriation amounts to property owners. Next slide, please. Upcoming changes to the Mineral Tenures Act. Significant changes to British Columbia's current mineral title staking regime, including the mineral titles online, are expected to occur in the near future as a result of a recent British Columbia case law concerning the Crown's duty to consult with Indigenous groups, including the recent case of Yukon and the British Columbia Chief Gold Commissioner. More specifically, it is expected that the British Columbia government will revise the Mineral Tenure Act and implement changes to mineral titles online. It is likely to include the replacement of automatic registration of mineral claims in British Columbia by mineral titles online with a new form of registration that recognizes the rights of Indigenous peoples and enables consultation. Importantly, in this case, the court did not find that the Mineral Tenure Act to be unconstitutional, and this decision does not impact existing mineral claims in British Columbia, and there are currently no claims on staking claims via mineral titles online. However, the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act, which was passed by the government of British Columbia in November 2019, mandates the provincial government to bring provincial laws into alignment with the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And the provincial government has been active in taking steps towards reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, which may further transform BC's mineral tenure system. Back at last slide. Just this presentation was a brief overview of the subsurface regulations of British Columbia, and be available afterwards to answer specific questions.
Thank you very much, John. Thanks for the overview. I have to admit, as someone who lives in British Columbia, I learned a few things there today, including free miners. So there you go. One point I think to raise as well is I think Canada is a good example where the provinces actually control the economy over top of the resources. And in many jurisdictions, including Kazakhstan, of course, it's at the federal level. But a good example, I think, where it actually works reasonably well. There's many jurisdictions. I think one is in Argentina, where you have fiscal regimes and fiscal restrictions at the federal level, and then you have the provinces that are responsible for the mineral rights that can often get very cumbersome and difficult. So thanks very much for that overview, Jonathan. We appreciate your attendance here today. I'd like to now pass the floor over to Brett Elliott, and Brett joins us here from Whitehorse and the Yukon. Brett is the acting head of technical services, energy, mines, and resources for the Yukon Geological Survey. He's a GIS professional with an extensive technical background, including expertise in IT, networking, databases, and programming. Based in Whitehorse, Brett has been a key member of the Yukon government over the last 10 years, dedicating 8 of those specifically to the Yukon Geological Society as a geological and spatial database administrator. His role involves managing complex databases and streamlining spatial information systems, showcasing his proficiency in both geographical and technological domains. Since 2023, Brett has also taken on the responsibilities of head of technical services in an acting role, demonstrating leadership and overseeing technical operations and driving innovation. We very much look forward to hearing about the Yukon and a leader in this area. And I'll turn the floor over to Brett. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm Brett Elliott. I'm going to talk about some of the things that I do at the survey. Next slide, please. Thank you for the introduction. We can skip over this one as well. Next slide, please. In this talk, I'd like to give an overview of the Yukon. I think some people know of who we are and what we do, and some people don't. So it's nice to kind of show where we're at on a map. Thank you, Jonathan, for giving us an overview of the BC minerals staking and claims and all that. That kind of ties into a lot of what we do. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do at the Geological Survey in the Yukon, our process, and how we share data. Next slide, please. So the Yukon is a small territory in northwestern Canada. It's about a 2.5-hour flight from Vancouver, or if you drive, it's about 30 hours. So we're fairly remote. Next slide, please. In the Yukon, we have about 40,000 people, managing an area the size of almost the United Kingdom. Our GDP in the Yukon is around $3 billion Canadian, and the mining sector is about 15% of that. In the Yukon, another fun fact here is that we have 40,000 people, but around 70,000 moose. So there's almost 2 moose in the Yukon for every person. Next slide, please. This is a graphic showing the mining exploration expenditure in the Yukon for the past few years. You can see that in terms of our economy, it's around 250 million Canadian, which is fairly substantial for a very small population. Next slide, please. One of the things that we do with the geological survey is keep track of the mineral resources and reserves in the Yukon. We have a new publication that summarizes this data. It's called the Mineral Deposit Summary, and this will tell you about how much gold and silver and resources we have in the Yukon. So we've put that together, and it's you can find that on our website. Next slide, please. In the Yukon, we have a variety of infrastructure, but most of this is fairly small and limited. In the Yukon, our main access to minerals is roads, and we have a few power lines. But when we talk about like highways in the Yukon, some of these highways are actually just gravel roads, and it's not like the 401 in Toronto that you might be seeing of 16 lanes of highways. We're talking about 2 lanes through the mountains. The main way that we get minerals to market in the Yukon is ports in Alaska. So just the very south end of the Yukon there, about a 2-hour drive from Whitehorse, is Skagway, which has a deep water port, which we're able to get minerals to, mostly shipping out to Asia or North America. Next slide, please. In the Yukon, we have a very similar system currently to British Columbia, where we have free entry. That means that claims are physically staked by a series of posts in the ground. What that means is that you need to physically travel to the ground that you intend to stake the claim on. Next slide, please. In the Yukon, we have new legislation that is currently in the works. I was speaking with the director of this team yesterday, and he was saying that we don't have a timeline per se on when this will be implemented, but in the next few years, we're currently doing consultation with industry professionals, with First Nations in the Yukon, and the new legislation seeks to respect Aboriginal and treaty rights and promote reconciliation, as well as create conditions for a mining industry that is viable, competitive, and responsible. We would like to realize economic benefits for both present and future generations of Canadians. And so this link here is where you can find all that information, but again, it's in the very early stages. Next slide, please. So at the Yukon Geological Survey, next slide, please. We do a lot of baseline data collection. We use science, we do mapping and reporting. We also fund junior mining companies to go out and explore, collect data. Next slide, please. We have 4 groups that focus on different things. We have a technical service group, which I'm the acting head of. We have a bedrock geology, superficial geology, and minerals. Next slide, please. And our work supports, we like to think that our work supports data-driven decisions with government. We like to be able to be the key stakeholder to any geoscience information, and provide that to government, to industry, to academia and public, and that includes First Nations. So not only the mining sector, but we also do natural hazard analysis as well. So in our process, we do a lot of not only field work, but we do data studies as well, where we look at existing data that has been published and we compile that into regional collections. And it's our job to try to make sure that everybody's aware of that data and that it's shared as well as we can. Next slide, please. So some of the tools that we use for information sharing at the survey is we have an online database and portal, kind of like a central spot that if you're curious about geological data in the Yukon, it's a one-stop shop for information. We also like to give out interactive maps and GIS tools. One of the challenges with GIS and mapping is some of the licensing fees are very expensive, and it has a very high barrier to entry when it comes to the amount of technical knowledge required. So one of my goals of the survey is to make it so that you do not have to be a technical computer whiz, be able to access the data and view it, that you can view and browse the data, see if it's what you're interested in, and then download it and do analysis on it if you need to. Another thing that we pride ourselves at the survey is that we have 2 outreach geologists that go out and in one of the talks earlier, or one of the keynote speakers, Jonathan from AME, was saying that it's very important that we share the geoscience information knowledge with all levels, especially young people, to make sure that we have a very good geoscience knowledge just in the community, so everybody understands the value of it. And so we invest in that by having 2 geologists, that their core role is outreach with the community. Next slide, please. So if you're interested in finding our data, you can go to Google, just search for Yukon Geological Survey. That's one of my big goals, is to have everything have search engine optimizations. So if you just type in the term, it should pull it up on the webpage. But if there are things that you're curious in, our main site is this data.geologist site. We also use Facebook and Instagram as well, just to share information. We found that one success story that we had was there was an earthquake in Whitehorse a few years ago, and there was a YouTuber that created a video sharing what they thought was the reason for the earthquake. And when we, as the scientists, saw the video, we said, oh, their science is completely wrong, but that science is already out there and it's getting thousands and thousands of shares. So we were able to leverage Facebook, create our own video and share it and get the proper messaging out of how we did. And instantly we had 40,000, 50,000 views for a territory the size of ourselves. And we were able to get the proper science message out. And so we've had a lot of success using social media in sharing a message. Next slide, please. You can skip this one, next one. On our data portal, this is where you can find our publications, our compilations, and then some of our key mineral databases like MinFile and DrillCore. Next slide, please. Next slide. Within our publication database, this is where we share reports that we publish, and we also collect data from industry. Before Yukon Geological Survey was one of the main geoscience knowledge holders in the Yukon, we had a variety of mining companies, and we've gone back and done data property file collections where we've digitized thousands of documents and maps from the 60s and 70s and even back to the early 1900s, capturing the work that's been done by industry and trying to make that available to the public. Next slide, please. Every year we publish scientific reports detailing the work that we do and where we're working. And we try to be on the forefront of science and research in the Yukon. Next slide, please. Nick, go ahead. One of the goals that we do at the Yukon Geological Survey is we try to compile our project level research into regional data sets. So one of our key regional data sets is our bedrock geology map. Even though we are a small team of people, we've worked with the Geological Survey of Canada to create a regional bedrock map. And every year we work to improve these areas and find out more information about the bedrock geology. Next slide, please. Similar to this bedrock geology map, we've also created compilations for superficial geology, for geochronology, geochemistry, geophysics, mineral occurrences, and a growing field that we're working on is permafrost and climate change adaptation. Next slide, please. All this data that we put on our website, we try to make available for easy download, and that's in shape files, file geodatabases, and we try to make it available to as many people in as many formats as possible. Next slide, please. Our MinFile database is one of our kind of biggest data sets. And one of the things that kind of ties into the minerals legislation that works really well for us is in Jonathan's talk, he had mentioned that in order to keep your claims in good standing, that you can file reports for assessment credit. At the survey, our geologists read through all of these reports, and there's such an incredible wealth of information in these reports that we're able to use that data to populate our databases. And when these reports are submitted by industry, they submit digital data associated with that. And we keep that data confidential for 5 years or so to give those companies a competitive advantage. But after the 5-year term, we make it open, available to everyone in the public. And this allows us to create a very wide, very in-depth knowledge of the geological information and the exploration history of the territory. Next slide, please. One of the things that we have at the Geological Survey in Whitehorse is we have a core facility. So we try to collect a representative core of all the different deposits in the Yukon. And these facilities are freely available for the public to come and use. And core can be resampled, reassayed if the public is interested. Next slide, please. One of the projects we did in the last couple of years is we worked with a company called Geological AI, which scanned 75 drill holes and brought into their digital core table software, which allows you to use a computer to view the core, reanalyze it, and use leading edge technology in order to view and analyze the data. A good example of this here is on the web platform. You can zoom right in, and next slide, please. You can see a variety of different metrics and data that you can use for analyzing and logging the core. Like I spoke about, the assessment reports is a wealth of information that we collect. We have about 10,000 reports that show data back to the 1940s. And this is a very in-depth data set. Next slide. This is a good example of some of the geochemical data that we've collected. And next slide, please. One of the projects that we've done recently is as these assessment reports submit digital data associated with it, we've been trying to compile a regional database, or sorry, a regional database of all the geochemistry from all the different assessment reports of the territory, which gives you a very big, very in-depth picture. And this represents millions of dollars of spending over the entire territory. Next slide, please. And last up, one of the things that we do is we try to create web mapping applications that allow users to view the data. We try to make it mobile friendly, laptop friendly, iPad friendly, all that. And we try to make it as easy to access as possible. Next slide, please. A good example of some of this data here that we have is this is a mine in the Yukon called Minto. It's an open pit mine that it's currently it's been closed recently, but you can see the drill holes that we have at the core library. We have a variety, and you can see right where they are in the open pit. If you click the next page, next slide, please, you can see the data that we keep, including the assays, the drill plan, or the pit plan, as well as the core that's in the library and zones of mineralization. Next slide, please. Finally, one of the things that we do at the survey is not only do we want to make sure that our data from Yukon Geological Survey goes into a database, we want to make sure that all of the data that the other branches and departments, the government, goes into a central depository as well. So if you're interested in infrastructure, if you're interested in land tenure, if you're interested in the First Nation traditional territories or settlement land, that all goes into a central repository that we call this corporate spatial warehouse, and where this can all be viewed through a central web viewer called Yukon. And this allows free access to everybody to our data. And so if you're interested in viewing this data, you can find it at GeoYukon or mapservices.gov.yk.ca, or you can just search Google for GeoYukon. Like I alluded to earlier with our Facebook and Instagram, our social media, we have, we're a small jurisdiction, but we have around 3,000 followers on our Facebook and Instagram, and we use this to help promote our products and help get our messaging out there as well. And as I mentioned, we have 2 full-time staff dedicated to community outreach. And that's it. So thank you so much.
Terrific. Yeah, it's very, very informative. I think one of the things that many of us in the industry are very well attuned to is that a key pillar foundation of making discoveries and turning those discoveries into mines is data. And I know I personally have been involved in a past project where we acquired it and then we were handed a plastic bag full of CD-ROMs, which literally had tens of millions of dollars of invested work that had gone into them over decades. And that's where it was. And it would have been very easy for that to go into a filing cabinet and never be seen again. And so the example that Brett has given here in terms of how that data is captured and then stored and then shared and being made available for future exploration companies and future mining companies is absolutely imperative in order to accelerate the process to make discoveries and build mines. And so I'm sure there's a lot of synergies. I know that the government of Kazakhstan is looking at continuing to enhance that and make that available. And perhaps there's some synergies and sharings that can happen between the Yukon and the other provinces, in fact, here in Canada as well. So thank you very much, Brett, very timely, and thank you very much for your contributions this morning. I'd like to now call on the last speaker of this panel, Timur Uyubayev, the head of Mining System Division and Chief Expert with Kazatomprom. Timur is a seasoned professional in mining and geology, currently serving as head of the Mining System Division and Chief Expert at Kazatomprom GSC since December of last year. With over a decade of experience, he has held various leadership roles, including senior manager, contributing to oversight of 13 mining subsidiary companies. And he's been instrumental in implementing mining software, establishing geological databases, and conducting ore reserve audits. His earlier tenure at JSC Volkov Geolai involved spearheading prospecting and exploration for uranium deposits, managing the geology and radioecology department, and overseeing diverse responsibilities in geology, geophysical, and geological works. With a diverse background in hydrogeology and geotechnical roles, Timur stands out as a key figure in the mining industry, blending technical expertise with strategic leadership for Kazatomprom's success. I'm sure it'll be a great add to Brett's presentation, Timur. We look forward to handing the floor over to you.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank the organizers for this conference, for inviting us here today. Next slide, please. Kazakhstan is an attractive country for investment in mining and mineral exploration. Extensive natural resources, including coal, uranium, oil, gas, metals, and minerals, have been discovered in the country. Kazakhstan's economy is focused on extractive industries, which creates a favorable environment for investors in the sector. Kazakhstan actively develops its infrastructure and laws to attract foreign investment in extraction and exploration, providing investors with legal stability and tax incentives. In 2017, a new mining code was introduced, enhancing the regulatory framework. The development of nuclear energy will accelerate the transition of mankind to a fully decarbonized economy, and Kazakhstan, represented by Kazatomprom, is both its flagship and driver. And in this presentation, I would like to give a brief overview of the uranium industry in Kazakhstan, covering the stage of formation, current status, and future plans of the world's uranium producer, Kazatomprom. 6 uranium provinces have been identified in Kazakhstan. Mining is currently carried out in 3 provinces. These are Shu-Sarysу, Sirdarya, and North Kazakhstan. Uranium is extracted by 14 enterprises in 26 depository sites, which are mined using in-situ leaching method, which is recognized by IAEA as the most environmentally friendly and safe way to develop deposits. Kazakhstan has 13% of the world's uranium resources, while Kazatomprom is exploring and developing areas with reserves of 589,000 tons uranium and resources of 762,000 tons uranium, including research suitable for ISL. Exploration for uranium. Next slide, please. Exploration for uranium began in 1947 in the former USSR in Kazakhstan, and in the 50s, hydrothermal deposits were discovered, which until the 70s formed the basis of the uranium produced. Mining at these deposits was carried out by open pit and shaft mining methods. At that time, roll front or epigenetic type deposits were being discovered in Uzbekistan in Cretaceous Paleogene sediments, which were very difficult to exploit by conventional methods, due to the fact that they were heavily watered and it was unsafe to mine in such conditions. At that time, the ISL method was not popular in the USSR. Having studied the regularity of formation of this type of deposits, geologists discovered similar deposits in Kazakhstan. It's like Arras, Jalpak, Shayan, and Kazatomprom. In 1969, a pilot in-situ leaching project was started in the Arras field, which was successful, and the water cut factor turned from a negative to a positive factor. In 1977, uranium mining began at Arras. At this time, large-scale exploration begins and production begins at some of the deposits. From 1997 till 2000s, production began at most of the currently operating mines. In 2009, Kazakhstan became the world's #1 uranium producer. Kazatomprom went public on the London Stock Exchange and Astana International Exchange in 2018. Next slide, please. The main production is carried out in two provinces, Shusarsu and Sirdarya, separated by the Karatau Ridge. Geological, these are complexly built Mesozoic and Cenozoic depressional sedimentary basins of submerged intermotion through extending to the north and northwest. The basin is underlain by a granitic metamorphic layer, followed by a structural floor of lithified sediments formed in the middle late Paleozoic and overlain by a platform cover represented by a weakly lithified Mesozoic and Cenozoic sediments. These sediments host uranium mineralization, which is concentrated at the redox boundary and is rich in the terrestrial carbonaceous material. The ore bodies generally form the shape of rolls. The most favorable host rocks are loess, fine to coarse grained and coarse sandstones containing pyrite and carbonaceous material. Roll forms vary greatly in size and shape. Their transverse extent is typically several kilometers and their thickness several meters. The Budenovskaya, Inkai, and Munkuruk deposits actually form a continuous strip and are in fact a huge deposit or field over 100 kilometers long. Depths of mineralization vary from 150 meters, like Apak Agala, to 800 meters, Budenovskaya and Kherson. Favorable geological conditions conductive to in-situ leaching provide Kazatomprom with unique competitive advantage. 100% of Kazatomprom uranium production is carried out using the ISL method. Here are some of the benefits of using ISL uranium mining: lower cost of mine development, reduction of construction time, minimum production cost, reducing the negative impact of the environment. There is virtually no threat to health and safety. However, it should be noted that in any mining operation, there is a need for strict process control and attention to safety and environmental issues. Kazatomprom is committed to adhering to high standards in these areas in the conduct of its operations. This slide shows the pace of uranium mining in Kazakhstan, which is carried out with joint ventures with various shares of participation, such major companies as Cameco, CGN, Sumitomo, Kansai, Marubeni, and Uranium One. As you know, the uranium industry in Kazakhstan operates on the principle of raw materials in exchange for technology and investment. This approach allowed Kazatomprom to launch the initial nuclear fuel cycle and have access to conversion and enrichment, like production of uranium dioxide, ceramic powders, and fuel pellets, which are used to make nuclear fuel. Since 2018, Kazatomprom has been reduced production by 20% of contractual obligation, and it's expected to reduce production by 10% by 2024, driven by the company's successful conclusion of contracts with both new and existing customers. Since 2010, Kazatomprom has been the world leader in natural uranium mining, and since 2018, it has been ranked #1 in the world in terms of uranium sales. In 2022, Kazatomprom retained its position as the largest uranium producer in the world based on respective share in production. The company's uranium production in 2022 amounted to approximately 22% of the total global primary production. The main customers of uranium products are American countries, 26%, European countries, 32%, and Asian countries, 42%. Kazatomprom sells uranium products directly and through its trading subsidiary, Trade House Kazakh. Kazatomprom implements safe, secure, and reliable logistics solutions to deliver uranium products to its customers worldwide. In December 2022, the first shipment of AFA 3D design fuel assemblies was delivered to a Chinese nuclear power plant. To date, several more batches of fuel assemblies have been delivered to China. In addition, as part of the diversification of transportation routes, the physical delivery of natural uranium via the Trans-Caspian International Transport Road to Canada was successfully completed in 2022. In 2023, uranium for Romania and PP was delivered via this road. Next. Kazatomprom strives to comply with principles of sustainable development at all stages of its operations. These principles of sustainable development are the basis of the company's development strategy. Adherence to these principles is important not only for long-term development, but also for the formation of Kazatomprom's corporate values. In December 2022, S&P Global Rating assigned an ESG score of 51 of 100 to Kazatomprom. Kazatomprom is better positioned than its peers in the mining sector. On March 15, 2022, Kazatomprom officially joined the UN Global Compact. Participation in the UN Global Compact is one of the key indicators of Kazatomprom commitment to the principles of sustainable development, the climate agenda, and decarbonization issues. Environmental protection is one of our top priorities. As the company takes a set of measures and carries out systematic work to minimize the negative impact on the environment, continuously improving the level of environmental safety and sustainable development of its enterprise. Despite increasing uranium mining rates, optimizing production processes, and applying new technology, in 2022, the total amount of water intake was reduced by 9% compared to 2021. Electro-energy consumption was reduced by 3%, and direct carbon dioxide emissions were reduced by 9%. Expenditures on environmental protection activities amounted to 1,074 million tenge. We strive to reduce the negative impact by introducing technological improvement of our own production facilities. At the same time, the company by selling its products to 8 countries that use nuclear power contributes to low carbon development and to the reduction of pollution emission into the atmosphere. In order to compensate for the depletion of operating mines, the following activities are currently underway. Work is underway to obtain permits at the right to mine uranium at Section 3 of the Inkai deposit. Exploration work is being carried out at Section 2 of the Inkai deposit to prepare for uranium production. Project documentation is being developed for exploration at the Vostochny Zhalpak area with expected reserves of 35,000 tons. At the stage of realization of the project, construction of processing shops at 3 enterprises, Inkai, Ortalyk, and UMP, aim expanding production capacity and producing high-quality products. It is also planned to build a sulfuric acid plant with capacity of 800,000 tons per year to supply acid to mining enterprise and minimize the deficit. According to the World Nuclear Board, uranium demand for nuclear power plants in 2023 is 65,000 tons and expected to double by 2040. The demand for nuclear fuel will also spur the development of small modular reactors in the world. The capacity of nuclear power plants will increase not only through the construction of new units, but also extending the service life of existing NPPs. The total capacity of nuclear reactors by 2040 may reach about 500 gigawatts. In today's world, where the demand for electricity is steadily increasing with advances in technology, ensuring access to electricity is crucial in the fight against growing poverty. However, traditional ways of generating electricity contribute to increased carbon emission, leading to climate change impacts that are already being felt. Nuclear energy has proven not to be an efficient way to produce a significant amount of clean energy. Its use is in direct path to a carbon-free energy delivery. Kazatomprom makes an active contribution to global sustainable development, striving to ensure and increase long-term economic benefits for both current and future generations. The company strives for sustainable growth by ensuring maximum safety of production and minimizing environmental impact.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Timur. That was a very insightful overview on uranium, which is one of the most hottest commodities at a particular time with the rising uranium price. And as you said, is an absolute pillar, I think, for us to continue to green the electrical grid globally. You know, obviously the important relationship that you have with Cameco, a great Canadian company, and both Kazatomprom and Cameco are co-sponsors here of this KCBC. So we thank you very much for coming all the way from Kazakhstan to share that with us. We're going to take a 10-minute break. We're running a little bit behind schedule, so I'm going to shorten it down by 5 minutes for 10 minutes. But I think we can definitely get through the extra panel and still have everybody on their way around 11:30. So we'll leave the audience that's still with us for 10 minutes. You can enjoy the beautiful background of the Vancouver Harbor. And if you listen very carefully, every couple of minutes you'll hear a roar, and that is a de Havilland seaplane that is firing up and heading somewhere in British Columbia. And we have Constantine Barbash, one of the executives with de Havilland, a great Canadian aviation company, with us today. So we'll leave that with you for 10 minutes and we'll take a quick break.
So the reference is just outside with what's known as
Yeah, everything's going.
A long time.
you know.
Yeah, it's a lot of water and a lot of bridges.
It's going well.
Yeah. Very hard to find.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It was pretty much like the perfect storm, right? And so, you know, I honestly wish things were fun. Probably, but it was what it is. Yeah.
Lots happened since then.
I know, I can't even, it's hard to even remember. Oh, wow, nice.
We actually have one came with bags. It's interesting how.
Yeah.
How was you ever go against venture capital?
Yeah, so we're.
Я что могу сделать? Я могу просто-напросто отказать. Сказать, что
Oh, yeah. Challenging year last year, for sure. Gas, energy, mining, industrial, a lot of industrial. So that's sort of an explorer space.
So where do you get the funding from? Is it like private individuals, businesses that are
Yes. All of the partners have sort of contributed there. So it's, we have sort of our professional team. Building out. Well, so everything from, you know, medium. Or structure. Versus depending on, you know, what the project is and what they're looking for, and then we register. Group, we acquired a group called Tribe in Calgary, and so we registered our reps. Fully acquiring the EMTs.
I think that's really where the future is with that kind of. It's fun because it's just lots of guys really No, like this is all. I was listening here thinking of like what a tremendous opportunity and so you know he's so professional, such a professional industry. An investor is not interested in that until investor.
No.
And so I think the whole business doesn't work.
How are you? Oh, struggling. It's usually battle. You know, right? What's going on? And I mean, you didn't talk to Darren, right?
No.
About what's going on with our CECC.
No. That's maybe that's a topic for like after today. We have to do something.
We should, the three of us, maybe I have a call I have to do.
Yeah.
To do it.
Yeah,
But
John, do you want to have a meeting with
Yes,
the
if you
ambassador?
want to actually on the 8th floor. So
Okay.
come down, I forward and send you the presentation.
Yeah,
Please come down, the accent. And Aaron, if we could have. coffee
Yeah,
or
when we
something,
can, that'd be fantastic. I'd love that, yeah.
I also have some, okay.
Let's talk about that later, but I just found out the other, I got it, this. No campaign. No campaign. We need documents right away, so.
Yeah, so that, yeah,
Anyway, but I'm just gonna
Yeah,
take care of this.
sounds
now.
good. Well, let's connect next week
Yeah.
and,
Good. I realize this is-
yeah, thank you,
Yeah, see you later. Okay, so you are moving to the other location. Alex was in touch with me. She said-
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yes. So we're,
Do you know where?
not yet. We have an offer in, on 2 places. So both all downtown.
You want to move here? That's nice.
This is beautiful.
I mean, John arranged this venue for us. He is here. This venue.
Yeah, so it's a beautiful space.
And it's as far as I understand, it's probably like 50% of. It's
There's so much space right now. We're just, and because we know there's so much space, we're taking our time.
Yeah, probably, I kind of imagine that quite a lot of people started working from.
Yeah.
And sometimes just, everyone is.
I think it's nice to see the men wearing ties again, and I've noticed more
Yeah,
people downtown.
Yeah.
Today's going well.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's just was very, very challenging preparation because it was a financial issues with, the people supposed to pay for this event. And basically, we're doing it like as usual, scrambling. And to be honest with you, I just had to.
So I have something very interesting, in that I think I have a really great project for our friends from BI
Mhm.
in Kazakhstan. So if they, how do we do that? How do we, because I think that this is,
Yeah.
this would be a great project. This would be a great project for them. That's, it's bad, it's secured by the government.
Mhm.
So like governments are involved. And it's everything, it's residential, health facilities, school facilities, integrated.
This is what they want. This is
Yeah.
what they want. I was a little bit astonished that they got some kind of, opportunity in Sudbury. And they were going to jump on it.
Yeah, that's very.
I think it's just a little bit strange idea unless they have this absolutely like extra $50 million to waste. Yeah, so did you talk to them? Because I know that you usually keep me
Yeah, no, I have, I reached out to them after the new year and didn't hear back. So that's why I thought it was.
Okay, I will. I'll go to. Yeah. So.
I don't know, I'm not here, my colleague, Tim, yeah, so they'll be in Toronto as well, yes.
I'm sorry, Darren, I only allocated to you.
No worries at all, thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, and I
Yes.
know my only response to which month.
Yeah, we're working on it, I mean, you're like, fine, right?
I definitely don't have time, but I am interested, so I have to find a way to.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's an important organization to me, but I don't want to.
See where we get to, I mean, I think there's just, collaboration.
I need to run. Thank you so much for
All right,
having me.
yeah, I'll
Thank you.
reach out.
Absolutely,
All right,
yeah.
thank you.
so much.
Thanks very much, but really nice to meet you.
Yeah,
Thank you very
good
much
to
for
meet you.
coming and very timely.
Thank you. So it's very possible that we may have a group who might be interested. But that would be maybe a little bit later in the February.
Sounds great, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I will
like
be in touch. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so
Terrific.
much.
Enjoy your time here in
Thank
Vancouver.
you so much, Brett, that
Thank
was
you.
fantastic. Thank you.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, I had to, I had to be, I knew I had to do that. Yeah, maybe it just might have.
All right, how you doing?
Yeah, sorry, I'm not having brought up, thought I'd,
Lots of changes in the company, good things are happening so far.
Fighting it, kind of. They're fighting.
Yeah, exactly.
The other guys are up.
See ya.
Thanks again, Aaron.
I'm not.
Okay. Are you any person? Oh my goodness. Okay, guys, I really ask you to come to the room. Okay, Konstantin, I'm really sorry.
Let's just say.
Are you not coming? Okay. Otherwise?
Thank you.
So thank you, and let me ask everyone who's speaking now. It's Jonathan, it's Chad, to probably come sit here because we would like the background to see.
Perfect. So, and Jose, would you be able to?
Yeah, sure.
as well? And then John is dialing in, see? John
Yes,
Cameco? Yeah, okay.
John is dialing in.
Okay, perfect, okay. Well, welcome back, everyone, and thanks to those online for staying with us. I hope you enjoyed the beautiful view and heard the airplanes as we were talking about in the background. So we're gonna kick off panel two, and this is a very important topic and one that spans globally. And that, of course, is best practices of health and safety in the mining industry, but I'd also add a couple of other areas that are often combined in with health and safety within our mining operations, and that is the environment and also our relationship with local stakeholders in the community. And so we have three speakers to talk to that today, and we're going to start with Chad Hewson. Chad is the Director of Exploration for Europe, Africa, and Australasia, and also responsible for health, safety, environment, and community at Teck Resources Company Limited. Teck is Canada's largest diversified mining company based here in Vancouver and has been for many years. He is currently the director responsible for those areas and has over 20 years of experience working and managing mineral exploration programs across several jurisdictions. He's lived in Ireland, he's lived in Turkey, and he is a big supporter of Kazakhstan now as well. So I'll hand it over to Chad, and we look forward to your talk. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me to have this share today. First of all, I am like the exploration director for the sort of what we call the region outside of the Americas for Teck, and I also do the exploration, but I'm not an HTEC professional. I'm a geophysicist by education. So, I'll be sharing with you today some of the vision and the initiatives that the company has developed for health, safety, environment, and community, but I'm kind of not responsible for them. So hopefully I can do them justice. If we can take the next slide and skip it so you can read the forward-looking statements later. I thought maybe I'd spend some time talking about Teck. For those of you who are less familiar with the company, briefly, I'll give you an overview on the next slide. You can see that the company is a 100-year plus Canadian company here, headquartered in Vancouver, with over 13,000 employees and 10 total operations throughout North and South America, as you can see, throughout Canada, US, Chile, and Peru. And currently, the company has significant divisions in copper, zinc, on a base metal side, and steelmaking coal. And probably the biggest news for the company this year was the divestment of our steelmaking coal business to Glencore, which the sale expected to complete later this year, which would make Teck Resources a completely base metal focused company looking at copper, zinc, and expanding into a nickel business as well. Why am I here today? If you look at the next slide, my responsibility is kind of the rest of the world for Teck, even though we don't have any operations in the rest of the world, as we call it internally. We do have exploration offices, and we have a presence in Ireland and Turkey and in Australia that is looking at new opportunities for exploration projects throughout Europe, Africa, and Australasia. And specifically, probably the most recent development for us was the signing of an exploration agreement with Darren's company, Arras Minerals here, that takes Teck into exploring jointly Arras' tenure, some of their tenure in northern Kazakhstan. So we're pretty excited about getting started on that this year, and hopefully be able to sort of establish a new office in the future. For the company, in terms of who we are and our values, over the last couple of years, this is quite in line with the talk that I'm giving, but over the last couple of years, we've sort of canvassed the employees and talked about why people love working for this company, and that became kind of our purpose, which is to provide essential resources the world is counting on to make life better while caring for the people, communities, and the land that we love. So you can hear in that statement that for how we operate, we're very committed to health and safety and sustainability and excellence, while ensuring that we're also responsible, courageous, respectful, inclusive, and humble and driven. And sustainability is a particular focus. And on the next slide, I'll just kind of highlight that. For the company, we've made some very significant sustainability commitments and goals in both climate, trying to deal with carbon emissions, and I'll talk a little bit more later in this conversation about biodiversity, our nature positive goal, and our commitment to communities and Indigenous peoples. And these commitments are from the board level all the way down to the employee level, and it's embedded right across the organization. And the company has been recognized externally by third parties as a leader in the industry across the board in its commitment to sustainability. And we do this overall because we believe that from now moving forward, it's critical in the industry. If you want to be a producer, you have to have a ESG strategy, and you have to actually walk the walk. So it's a competitive advantage for us, ultimately getting us access to land and making sure that we have that social license to develop these resources responsibly. The next slide, I want to talk a little bit more about our approach to health and safety. And for me, I've been with the company for 20 years, and I've seen a significant journey here from what was kind of an early approach to health and safety, where in the industry in general, I'm showing data from MSHA here in the US because it's easily available and probably a good indicator of safety performance in the industry over time. And as you can see, sort of from the mid-80s to the early 2000s, there was a significant number of people that were dying at work in the mining industry. And that's just ultimately unacceptable. But if you consider why that was happening, if you go to the next slide, I think there was a largely an acceptance that accidents will happen, that mining is largely a dangerous activity and people will end up getting seriously injured or killed at work. Ultimately, the regions enacted legislation and technology advanced so that there was an improvement in that performance, but that improvement wasn't good enough. And I think the industry in general recognized that in order to make the performance towards zero fatalities and zero injuries, we really had to establish an era of values-based safety. And so for Teck, we established a program in the late 2000s, I think 2008 or 2009, which was called Courageous Safety Leadership. And this was our journey of installing a values-based approach to safety in our organization. And I'll talk about that on the next slide. So for us, the Courageous Safety Leadership program is really starting with its vision. And the vision is that everyone has the right to go home safe and healthy every day, no matter what they're doing and what level in the organization they are. The 6 principles of CSL, and I'll read them out because they're important. Number 1, I am responsible for safety and for the safety of those around me. Number 2, I'm empowered to be courageous. I must speak up if my safety or the safety of those around me is affected or could be improved. 3, my values, beliefs, attitudes, behaviors, and actions have an impact on me and on others, both at work, at home, and at home. Number 4, safe operation is still a productive operation. And number 5, we can achieve excellence in safety through a positive culture of safety and strong technical programs. And lastly, safety is a core value at Teck and will not be compromised for any reason. So the company established this program, which was largely a series of courses, workshops, training, and every employee and contractor that works with our company gets inducted in CSL. There have been many iterations of CSL since 2009, and I'm pleased to say in 2024, we'll be rolling out CSL 5, which will be the next step on our journey to try to achieve zero harm for our employees and our contractors at work. And if you go to the next slide, I mean, that has had a market improvement in the industry, and Teck is not the only company that has taken this values-based approach. Obviously, large companies, specifically the Australian mining industry, was a leader in this in the early 2000s. And we have seen a significant improvement all the way down, probably a reduction of 6-7 times from that 1980s data. But it has plateaued in the last few years. And so at Teck, we recognize that there's still room for improvement. So going forward on the next slide, we're going to concentrate on activities which we view are still our highest potential risks. So what we've done is we've identified about a dozen or more activities that we undertake in our day-to-day work, all the way through exploration, through mining operations, that are most likely to seriously injure or kill people at work. And we have defined what we call critical control standards, where we define what needs to be in place for people to do those activities. So this is like having an airbag in your car, similar type of approach for things like heavy mobile equipment, as you can see here, or for surface drilling operations. And then we ensure that those critical controls are actually implemented, they're reviewed, they're verified, and they are working. So this approach to high potential risk control, we feel, is our next journey to push that fatality number down to zero in the industry. And if you go to the next statement, it's great to have a bunch of documentation in place, and at the highest level of a risk management system, that documentation needs to be done. These safety professionals and work teams need to get together and identify where the areas for improvement can be. But it can't be just a series of documents that are in PDF form or printed on a table. We have to have a multi-layered risk management system that pushes all the way down into the activity in the field on the day, so that individuals have the responsibility to, look at the activities that they're doing and ensure it's safe. So here showing one of our colleagues doing a take 5 in the field, ensuring that nothing has changed for that activity that he needs to be concerned about, so that he can be safe at work. So that multi-layer risk management system is critical to have in place. I'll go to the next slide and I'll switch topics a little bit, and I'm going to talk about our approach to environment and reclamation, and specifically to switch the slide, go to nature positive. So what is nature positive? Well, first of all, I mean, we were the first mining company in 2022 to become, to make a commitment to contributing to a nature positive future by 2030. And this recently, there was the conference in the UAE, I believe. This was a big piece of discussion where I think a lot of companies contributed to this nature positive future now. And what this means is that we are going to conserve or rehabilitate at least 3 hectares for every 1 hectare that's affected by our mining activity. So that's a pretty significant commitment. How are we going to do that? If you go to the next slide, our approach will be obviously to ensure that we have world-class rehabilitation efforts. So we're going to be using a 2020 baseline to measure our performance. And so by 2030, we will reach that 3 times measure. So rehabilitation obviously gets you that hectare back if you do it well. But we're also going to ensure that we conserve another 2 hectares to reach the nature positive goal. And that's going to, those 2 hectares also need to be related, in some meaningful way to the activities that we were undertaking in mining. We can't just sort of go into a random place and conserve. We need to sort of relate this to an operation to reach this nature positive goal. So go to the next slide. We'll look at some examples of rehabilitation just quickly. So in the Cardinal River mine, which was a coal operation in Alberta that's kind of undergone a staged closure, you can see our approach to rehabilitation on the top image on the right. The Luscar mine, which was closed before the turn of the century, I suppose, has now had quite a bit of time to rehabilitate, and the mining activities had moved a stream and disturbed a fish habitat. And what was pretty impressive is the rehabilitation has restored the stream system and restored the fish habitat. And as you can see, also has established native plant species in the areas that were disturbed from mining to kind of create, what's looking like a fairly impressive approach to rehabilitation. It's an award-winning rehabilitation program, and the active closure that's going on at the rest of the site, which is more recent within the last couple of years, you can see we'll be following the same path, less time for sort of maturation of some of those native plant species. But ultimately, all of this work is done in consultation with Indigenous groups and traditional owners, as well as recreational users in the area, to ensure that we are taking their concerns and comments on board for the rehabilitation. And if you flip to the next slide, what's interesting about this particular example is we've actually opened up part of the mine lease back to Indigenous groups and traditional owners. We provided maps. There are trails, and people can access the ground for hiking, fishing, hunting, etc., which is now becoming more like almost a national park in that respect. So this is what we would consider the best practice. Going to the next slide, I'm going to talk really briefly about social performance, which is critical. If you go on, I mean, for us, for all of our operations, we need to ensure that we really establish these trust-based relationships with communities of interest. And so for the first step for us is to understand, who's actually affected by our operations. It could be an exploration project, or it could be a mining operation, and the communities of interest could be communities that are a significant distance from our activities that still have an effect due to their use of land or water or, the air quality. And then we need to understand what their concerns are and develop a social risk profile. And when we put our management system in place, it needs to consult. So it's important for us to ensure that we build these relationships, and they're based on dialogue and they're based on trust. And that we focus on opportunities to develop our projects, but also establish some sort of shared benefits. And if you go to the next slide, at Teck Resources, 8 and 9 of our active operations, and most of our other projects are actually located within or adjacent to Indigenous peoples' territories. And it's important that the company acknowledges and respects their rights and understands their needs and goes through a proper consultation process to ensure that we have the social license to actually operate our operations. So we will also look for opportunities to work together. And if you look at the next slide, we have a program called Community Investment, where we've got a commitment to contribute 1% of our earnings before tax on a 5-year rolling average to create lasting benefits in communities where we operate. So in 2022, it was almost $25 million that were put back into communities in Canada, US, Peru, and globally. And for us, it's not so much that we want to necessarily just provide communities with donations. Sometimes communities will require donations and the program can be used for that. But we also want to link this with both the nature positive goal. So perhaps establishing a community-led initiative to help protect the environment or restore the environment that's related somehow to the area, but also to help build the community up in thinking about sustainable action, sustainable business development, to try and give them the seed money and the help to start an initiative that actually will help improve their quality of life. Ultimately, we would like these investments to be long lasting. And we have a good example from our time in Namibia, where we used our community investment money to train up health education workers that were local women in traditional groups, Indigenous groups in the northern Namibia, to give them enough training to provide health consultation for communities. And that program was eventually taken on as a partnership with the United Nations and continues on today. So that's a great example of how the company engages with communities to create kind of shared benefits that are long lasting. And that's it, I think, if we go to the next slide. So thank you for the time.
Thank you very much, Chad. As you mentioned, I mean, it's an important share, and I think the health and safety really belongs to all of us, as you pointed out. I mean, one of the things you mentioned there in terms of I am responsible for the safety of myself, but also those around us, and the importance on actually speaking up. And I think it's very common now amongst the mining companies, at least Canadian mining companies, and I think many around the world, is that even if the ambassador or the CEO or the chairman was to come to visit a mine and to get into that pickup truck, that pickup truck would not move until the ambassador or the chairman or the CEO had their seatbelt on. And if they'd forgotten to put it on, it would be up to the driver, it would be up to Chad to say, Chairman, you need to put your seatbelt on before we go. And that's that courageous sort of importance around health and safety, because at the end of the day, we all own it. So some great shares there. Thank
I
you.
would like to highlight something, like it caught my attention, this initiative of Teck's positive goal. If you do mining activities in one piece of land, you are going to rehabilitate like 3 times that. That is the first time that I hear something like that. Especially at these times, like the mining community worldwide is so questioned by the society. The pressure to be more green, decrease our footprint. Yeah, so I would like to highlight that. It's very interesting initiative.
And you can see the examples, right? I mean, that's in Canada's Rocky Mountains, on the other side, on the eastern slopes of the Rockies that are, between Alberta and British Columbia, and it looks like a national park, right? And so
I'm impressed, really, Chad, to what you're doing in the places of the mining. This is like just seems like nothing happened there. It's fantastic work. And I just wanted to add, yesterday I had a very good meeting with Deputy Minister Baskerville, and she just gave information for you. She gave brilliant assessment of your activity of the Teck Resources, about your contribution to development of British Columbia, and she just was very, very happy to work with your company.
Yeah, thanks. I think the values side of it is really critical, and I think we can't deny that there is some disturbance in land caused by mining, but obviously you need to accept that we need the raw materials. But I think the interesting thing is that if you work with communities, the link between communities and environment is really important, because a lot of the times when we struggle with permitting projects, it's because the communities have, they have the concern that there will be an environmental impact, because their need to access the land and live off the land and have clean water is critical. So there's a key link between permitting and environmental performance and social performance, and they're not individual in any respect.
Thank you. Great sidebar discussion. I know we'll have some chances for further questions as well at the end of this. But it now gives me great pleasure to call on John Takala with Cameco, another one of Canadian leading mining companies focused in uranium and based in Saskatchewan. John is the director of safety, health, environment, and quality. It's a little bit different order, right? But it's really very much the same. And John's career spans over 30 years in the uranium industry. He started his career as a radiation protection specialist, and his specialties have been progressively extended to include safety, environment, contractor, and quality management. He's currently the director, as I said, of safety, health, environment, and quality at Cameco, and leaves the team responsible for the corporate programs in these areas, as well as the audit function. In this capacity, he sets the direction and requirements in the broad safety-related activities across the company, and he continues to in the field of radiation protection at national and the international level. His first trip to Kazakhstan was almost 20 years ago, and he has been back numerous times, often conducting safety-related audits at the Inkai joint venture with Kazatomprom, which we heard earlier about from Timur, and leads safety culture assessments at Cameco for over the last 2 decades, and brings many learnings from this work to today's presentation. So John, thank you very much for joining us, and we'd like to hand the floor over to you.
Okay, fantastic. I'll just share my screen here. Can everyone see that?
No, not yet. Oh,
there?
Looks like it's coming up. Yeah, it's come up, John. Thank you.
Okay, so thanks for the introduction and my talk. All a lot of similarities with Teck and some of the things we're doing, not surprising, given our same mining industry in Canada. But I'll zone in a little bit more on safety specifically. I've entitled it Sustainable Safety Performance. I'll start with a quick brief overview of Cameco. I'm not sure how many are familiar with us. Then I'll talk about the evolution of safety systems at Cameco, how we've evolved a bit over the last few decades, and then talk about some key elements of sustainable safety, how to make that stick in the long run. So, map of the world, and we've got our uranium operations in northern Saskatchewan. We've got mines in the United States, Wyoming and Nebraska there in care and maintenance. Right now, we've got our fuel facilities in Ontario. Recently became involved with Westinghouse, and probably most importantly for this audience, our important joint venture operation with Kazatomprom, the Inkai operation in Kazakhstan. So how the evolution of our safety systems? Well, I'd say in the 1990s was a little bit more informal. We were certainly tracking lost time injuries. We had site level procedures. We did have corporate-led audits. And then in the early 2000s, we started developing a more systematic, formal safety, health, environment, quality management system. So safety fit in with that broader management system. On the safety side, we started developing technical safety standards for some of those high-risk activities, working at heights, control of hazardous energy or lockout tagout, those sorts of things that were common across our company. We started implementing some corporate tracking databases to support some aspects of the management system. And then 2005, we'd had all the stuff written, and then really started digging in on the implementation side over the next 5 years. We started doing formal safety culture assessments. We revamped our corrective action process, looked at contractor management specifically in that time. And from 2010 to present, it's ongoing refinement of the system. Talk about in a minute, we adopted the US OSHA safety metrics, recordable injury, for example. We've expanded our safety standards from the sort of narrow technical things to start to cover human performance approaches, tackling management of change more systematically. So it's ongoing work, and that'll sort of be one of my themes during the thing. So how have we done? Well, going back about 20 years of history on this graph showing our lost time injury frequency. A bit busy. It's a 12-month moving average to try to take out some of the noise. We've got our open squares, which are our contractors, their performance, the diamonds are Cameco employees, and then the overall average. And you can see it's a bumpy journey. It was a bumpy journey down as we started to implement our management systems. And after, as we got to 2012, 11 timeframe, we were starting to get close to that top quartile, and this is based on our mix of what we're doing with mining, chemical processing, fuel manufacturing to the US OSHA statistics. We're essentially getting close to top quartile performance where we're having very few lost time injuries anymore. And that wasn't really going to drive any future performance. So then we went to the OSHA recordable injury with such a much lower threshold. I'd say that was, we had the US operations that helped us implement this with some rigor. I see a number of, you may think you're doing the recordable injury, but there's a lot of technical details in that took us by surprise initially, and we weren't doing as well as we thought we were. And we've, over the last dozen or so years, we've been working the same sort of bumpy journey down. And we've had times where we've been improving, and then some times where we've been going up. So it's seen a 3+ fold reduction. We're not quite at top quartile yet, and you can see that top quartile over the years has improved in our mix of industries, that downward trend, improvement in performance, less injuries over time. So it's keeping up with the Joneses, and the Joneses are getting better. So we've got work to do. We've had a major restart of activities with the boom in uranium going on, and this was just coincided with a lot of restrictions placed on us during the COVID period. So sort of a perfect storm of challenges for us that we're working through, and I'm cautiously optimistic we're on the start of another downward trend. So I tried to think, and I was told I had 10 minutes, so don't have a lot of time. I could probably give a half-hour talk gladly with each one of these points. But key elements, safety culture, it really starts at the top. Then you need that management system that we heard about from Teck. It really integrated into the business. And backdropping that is continual improvement. There's new challenges all the time. And I could talk probably for 20 minutes on those previous two graphs with a detailed history lesson of the challenges that we had on some of those upswings, and then how we turn those around with improvements in time. So looking at safety culture, Safety starts at the top of the organization, and that's key to long-term success. Everybody wants to please their boss, and that senior management needs to be committed to safety, and they need to insist on high standards. That's, that, and they need to get in, I'll talk about, into the management system. Consistent communication on safety. There's again, a whole presentation on that. That is a real challenge all the time. I've got just risk of going over a bit, but a short story of an example. We had years ago, a very seriously committed general manager to safety. He was very demonstrative about it. Everybody, he was one of the, he really made a point on safety. We were restarting a part of a mine that had been out of commission for a little bit. And there were lots of challenges with it. It was taking weeks and weeks and weeks. They were getting close, but not quite there. And on a Friday, he said, guys, I want this done when I come back on Monday. And the general foreman heard him and says, he left. He said, you heard the man. Get out of my way, guys. We're getting this done. None of these permits, none of this stuff. We're just getting her done. General manager came back on Monday. Oh, good, it's operating. Then he heard the stories and he was horrified. Well, that's not what I meant. Of course, we had to follow it. Now, nobody got hurt, nothing untoward happened, but can't say that we followed all our processes to the T that weekend. And now he took that opportunity as a learning point and explained it to everybody. But just that one gap in communication. He didn't say safety first, and people misinterpreted that. And then it's not good enough just to say it, that alignment with actions and communication. Now, he corrected path with that, but people want to hear the thing, but they also got to see that in terms of the allocation of resources and dozens of decisions every day and week on that. And then I've highlighted a strong reporting culture is foundational to strong safety culture and safety performance. Workers need to be comfortable reporting incidents, reporting mistakes. And there's a lot in that. That means they know what they should be reporting. They're educated enough to understand when there's something offside besides an obvious injury or breakdown. So they understand the procedures. They understand when things don't work well. They're comfortable enough to do it. They're not afraid that they're going to get in trouble in somehow. And that's when we get people in from outside the company. That's something in contractors we have to work on sometimes. That they don't feel comfortable reporting sometimes. It takes a while to get that through. The management system, I think we heard about how that was being done at Teck, and that is really critical. It's got to be integrated into your management systems. Those high standards need to be embedded in the processes and procedures. Very high level, we follow that plan, do, check, act model. Risk assessment, assessing risk in advance, that whether that's at the strategic level for the company or the work phase where, hey, we're doing a new task today, the procedures don't quite cover it. Let's stop and do what we call it would be in that case job hazard analysis, mini risk assessment, and then right down to the individual worker. They're starting a new task. Are they pausing and thinking about what they're doing? Do they have everything that they need? Do they understand what they're supposed to be doing? So that's really at all levels of the organization. Change management, critical to control that work environment. Our workplaces, mining's, it's an industrial setting. A lot of engineering and thought goes into the design of the plant and the mines themselves, but things change with time. And are we maintaining what the original design intent was? Or are we just making changes on the fly? The corrective action process, we have to investigate incidents and correct. We have to be comfortable doing this, and people need to be willing to report, which I was talking about under the safety culture. Audit systematically assessing your performance. Those last 2 points, it's rigorously holding yourself accountable to your high standards, and sometimes holding that mirror up is not as flattering as our intentions are. You know, see myself, gee, I thought I had more hair and looked a bit younger, but I got to face reality, and things don't work all the time, and we have to correct and then feed back into the management system. And that works on that continual improvement piece. You know, the business environment we're in, it's never static. Economics are changing, societal expectations change, regulations are changing, our workforce changes, life cycle of an operation. That brand new facility, all of a sudden it's 20 years later and you've got aging infrastructure issues. And so we need continuous learning at an organizational level and at the individual level. The organizational level, those management system elements such as audits, corrective action processes, those things are critical. We have to be willing as an organization to learn from those things, and external feedback. Regulator, external set of eyes see something, and we have to not be defensive and correct. And the senior leaders, again, play a critical role in making learning a core part of the business. They need to be powerful advocates of learning and enable those resources to make it happen. And then down at the shop floor level, the leaders and employees need to be openly sharing lessons learned with peers and reinforce those high standards. So sustainable safety performance, it's a long-term process. I've been working at this within Cameco for a couple of decades, specifically on the safety, making progress, but it takes a lot of work. It's a long-term game. And that tone from the top and the management system needed to reinforcement are critical to promote strong safety culture. Without it, it won't be sustainable. And there are no simple solutions to sustaining excellence in safety. It's an ongoing journey. Just as you've got a stable, good workforce, we go into a care and maintenance period, people leave, we have COVID, and now we've got a huge influx of new people. And you know, the challenges are always there for us. So you can never let your eye off the safety. And with that, I will try to end, hopefully close to the time limit that was given. So happy to answer any questions now or later on.
Thank you very much, John. That was very informative, and I think we will hold the questions to the very end after our last speaker. But you've raised some really important points, as you said. Tone from the top. It starts at the top. Safety belongs to all of us. And I thought another one that is quite common as well, and sometimes difficult to communicate across cultures, is the importance on reporting mistakes. As humans, none of us like to put our hand up and say we made a mistake or we made an error, or we didn't follow the process. But in fact, as you point out, that's how you get stronger at it, and that's how potentially you save from very bad injuries or even fatalities at the workplace. And it's imperative that all workers put their hand up and say, hey, there was something that happened here and we need to review it. So thank you very much, John. Very informative. I'd like to now call on our last speaker of this panel, Ingeniero Jose Luis Troncoso, who is Executive Advisor, Facilitator, and Mining Engineer at TELUS Mining Canada. Jose Luis, which actually almost happens to be the name of my father-in-law, so there you go, great name, has 15 years of experience in industry and particularly in mine planning operations and consulting focused on automation, productivity, and deployment of mining technologies. He has led projects on the implementation of mining technologies in Chile and in Australia, capturing knowledge and experience in diverse operational conditions, technology expertise applied to mining with focus on safety, productivity, and automation, which of course is more and more important. And there's more and more technologies that are driving towards automation to be more health and safety conscious, particularly in dangerous areas. And he has operational experience in the implementation of technological transformations in large-scale mining operations, leading the deployment, change management, and technology adoption by mining organizations. Please welcome Jose Luis.
Thank you, Dan, for the introduction. And thanks for the opportunity to participate here in this event. Yeah, what I would like to show you today is like some of the health and safety best practices in the industry, especially related to mobile equipment. Next. Just a short introduction who we are. We are a global consultant company. We are based in here in branches in Canada, Australia, and Chile. Our main office is based in Santiago, running projects in Chile and Peru mainly. But we have developed several projects in different parts of the world. Last year, we did some initiatives, safety initiatives in Kazakhstan as well, for some zinc operations. And mainly, our role is mainly helping mining companies or mining organizations to how to deploy successfully different kind of technologies in terms of safety, productivity, electrification as well. And last year as well, we helped to the Australian and the Chilean Department of Mines to build some new procedures and standards related to autonomous trucks, because now it's a technology that has been deployed in several parts of the world. So we are helping them as a technical agnostic guys, helping to set up this standard. And in terms of safety, one technology I would like to talk to today a little bit is about the collision awareness initiatives that are helping to improve safety standards worldwide. The next slide, please. Yeah, everybody knows that we are working in a risky environment, right? With a lot of equipment, people, and all kind of different activities, right? Just in the mine, in the plant, smelters. We as well, we are hauling materials from a mine site to the port, crossing with civilians. A lot of the incidents in our industry are related to when we do something in civilians activities, moving on the way to the port or a processing plant in another part. So yeah, this is everybody knows about how risky is our industry, right? Next, please. The main cause of fatalities, according to the ICMM on 2022, are those ones related to mobile equipment, even in open pits, underground, other kind of processing of ore, but are related to mobile equipment. When we talk about mobile equipment, it's any kind of activity with person involved, pedestrian, small vehicle, heavy vehicle, with light vehicle, all kind of interaction. Our industry is moving things, right? Moving things is there are issues of traffic, standards, a 24/7 operation usually, so a lot of pressure under people as well, right? In terms of fatigue, potential fatigue events. And the main controls in the hierarchy of controls are those related to the less effective controls in this kind of mobile equipment issue is like administrative and more kind of less effective than other controls. Next, please. When we talk with miners worldwide, you see the same. Every miner thinks that is very unique, that the mine is unique, that is very difficult to that you have anything in common, nothing in common with another kind of commodity because it's different process, different challenge, different weather, different safety license. So that miners, we tend to think that we are different, right? It's very difficult to compare with other companies. That is true at some point, right? Every mine is different, but in terms of health and safety, I think that there are a lot of in common, especially that we are in a risky environment and with this mobile equipment issues, right? In terms of, it's not just big trucks with small trucks, right? Or small vehicles. Everything is people, even animals on the roads, is live vehicles moving to the town or to the site, to the close town to the site. So that makes sometimes difficult the cooperation between mining companies because we see different each other. But in terms of safety, there are a lot in common. So I would like to talk today about this Immerse initiative. I don't know if you have familiar with that, but it's some companies like are listed there with OEMs and equipment or other kind of stakeholders. They create this initiative that now has been lasting 15 years, a little bit more, to share practices in terms of how to make the mobile equipment interaction safe. So they create workshops, active working groups that are developing standards and sharing lessons. That is important, sharing lessons, because even when we have improved a lot the safety standards worldwide in the entire industry, but still we repeat incidents. You see in some commodities or it could be a different commodity, but you see you repeat the same accidents. Steps of could be fatigue management, safety, any kind of safety related incident, but we tend to repeat that. So that is this kind of initiative helpful for cooperating. I think that is very important these days. So next one, please. What is about this methodology, about Immerse? I would like to talk about one of these that we did this. We applied this audit or assessment in some Kazakh companies last year. And it was quite an interesting work there. And we defined like all the kind of mobile equipment activities in one side. So in terms of, and we see how they are in terms of designing control, operating control, and reacting controls. And this initiative Immerse defined this 9 levels of intervention controls that are going more effective as you advance in terms of the numbers, in terms of the numbers, right, in the column. For example, the first 3 controls are focused in design, site requirements, how you segregate, and operating procedures. So it's very important to define. Maybe you can avoid a lot of issues or problems in the future if you do the first three steps. It's engineering a more effective kind of controls. Then, when in terms of operation, the 5 to 7, one related to the authority to operate, fitness to operate, operating compliance, and operator awareness. This is related to how you control who is operating your equipment, how is people being segregated in high risky environments, who has the authority to work there, how to control pedestrian access, those kind of controls. And the final ones, the 8 and 9, are in terms of reaction. Then is when the safety event is closer to happen. Is when you have 2 equipment very close, or equipment very close to a pedestrian. So it's very close for that event to happen. So that happens in maybe minutes, seconds, or that controls work on that spectrum, right? And then here we can highlight all the collision awareness kind of technologies that are quite mature, more than 15, 20 years in the industry. But now there is a big pushment for the level 9 controls. And South Africa is leading this initiative worldwide. The South African Department of Mines made a law making mandatory for all mining companies, surface and underground mines, to deploy active collision awareness system. I mean, like if someone operator is driving a truck, that even if that operator went to crash, eventually if he went to crash to another truck, he's not going to be able to do it because the truck is by itself. That is mandatory in South Africa from March last year. So now South Africa is at the forefront of this, but then in the close future, it's going to be a worldwide standard for sure, because the technology is already mature, is there. So it is like semi-automated system. So it's just a matter of very short period of time. I think that it's going to mature this and the next year in South Africa, and then it's going to explode worldwide for sure. It's going to be a worldwide standard. So it's important for companies to see this as early as possible, because they are going to get the benefits of reduce their incidents and have better standard for this kind of issues. Next one, please. Yeah, and this presentation quite short. I could explain more in detail if someone is interested, and feel free to talk more about that. But finally, after all this assessment, what we did last year in Kazakhstan with some companies, we finalized understanding the maturity of that company in terms of this standard of 9 levels of controls. Where is the company? And they define these 5 levels of adaptive, define, exploratory, or unaware, giving them starts about like how well they are doing in this standard. And to define a path, how you improve, because if you are not doing well in the first 7 levels, it doesn't make sense to deploy a new technology. Even it could be more risky, because if you deploy a technology and you don't have the right roads or traffic management or easier controls, you are not going to get the real value of that. So it's very important to go step by step. Even sometimes we went to one of these sites and we defined this guy, they really wanted to push for a collision awareness system, like just awareness, just alarms. But the site wasn't ready at that time. So we said, okay, guys, you need to fix these 6 levels first. So you have 1 or 2 years of work before you are ready to deploy a technology. If you deploy a technology now, maybe it's going to be more risky for your operation to do it, and you are going to expose people to that. Some examples with autonomous trucks. Same. I have participated in those kind of projects. Same. Not all the companies are ready for automation. They need to transform their people and processes. Even it's not the technology side. The technology side is the easier one. Just deploy it. Even now, there are like more than 200-300 autonomous trucks worldwide running for more than 5 years. The technology is ready, but the people is still go in there. It's not for all the companies. So next, please. Final remarks. I think that to complement the other speakers, I think that cooperation is important. Every mine, even if it's different, but a lot in common in terms of health, especially in terms of health and safety. So cooperation is very important. There are a lot of initiatives as this EMERGE, the CIM, there are other electrification initiatives, the GMG, the Global Mining Guidelines, quite nice initiatives, they share knowledge. There are a lot in common of share. I have been participating, for example, at GMG for 3-4 years, and always there are a lot of lessons to share, even if the mines are different. So I think that's a very important point. So to capture the lesson learned, share experiences, and accelerate the adoption, because you don't need to, if one company made 100 mistakes in the first deployment, the second company should make less than 100, right? At least 50. Why we're going to make the same mistakes, but sometimes happen, right? We made the same mistake because we don't cooperate. mining industry is undergoing a massive transformation in terms of automation, electrification, digitalization. So even now we have defined standards. We are creating new processes, new technologies. Sorry, something says so?
It's just an echo, but keep going. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's under transformation. So there are a lot of now things, even we define a standard, but now we need to upgrade that standard, even sometimes transform it to totally, for example, autonomous trucks, the trolley assist trucks as well, that we are quite close to those kind of project, digitalization as well. So we need to define what we are doing now, because we are creating new risks for people especially. Even when sometimes we are removing a lot of people from the hazard, yeah, that's good, very good point. But otherwise, we are operating from Vancouver, some autonomous trucks in high valley coppers, when 500 kilometers away. So that's happening in Perth, that's happening in Santiago, that's happening in Lima. So it changed, it transformed everything, communications. We need to transform a lot in our industry. So finally, we need to evaluate performance, what we are doing now, how we are transforming, because we are improving every time to adopt a better strategy. So that's my.
Thank you very much, Jose Luis. I mean, there's some good examples there, and I think we're seeing this across all of society, of course, is automation and new technologies are implemented. We've got lots of electric cars that are running around on the streets here in Vancouver. You mentioned about trolley assist. I think if any of us have children at home, they probably would look at, if there's anything like me, they look at dad and they, you're mining, okay, where's the dusty face and the hard hat? But the fact is that, with a lot of the automation and the technology and the fiber now that goes into the underground mines, we've all seen it where you've got, a professional that's sitting in a gaming chair, 10 screens and a joystick, and he's controlling the underground mining equipment down 1.5 kilometers on the ground. He's not with the dusty face. He's in an air-conditioned unit with a joystick and a gaming chair. So there's hope that our kids maybe will get into this industry as well, right?
Even another thing that they didn't talk now, but about the kind of software is so important now. How you design software. So there are some safety standards. Focus on how you write a code, because now that track is running by some person write a code, and that code is making that track doing things. So how you make sure that guy was feeling okay, wasn't drinking with the code,
Made a problem with the code.
And like a couple of months ago, it was an issue. I'm not going to say the operation, but one autonomous operation, it was hacked. Autonomous trucks were hacked, and were fortunately just shut down. But to show the power that I can do it.
Yes,
and they shut down an entire fleet of autonomous trucks.
Right.
Imagine if that guy not just shut down, make that truck go into the town.
Yes. Yeah, somebody could be killed. Yeah, and you've got 50 trucks at $5 million a truck. It's $250 million worth of equipment heading into town. Yeah, no, exactly. Very good. Thank you very much, Jose Luis. Your moderator didn't do a very good job today. He ran over time. So I think he'll be fired for next year. Yeah, exactly. But I think we've had a very informative sort of sharing. And thank you to everyone who's attended and to the speakers. Have we got 5 minutes maybe? Is there any questions that have come through or questions from the floor?
I don't see any questions in chat. If people who are in chat right now, if you have any questions, please write them down. Otherwise, if there are any questions from the floor, please.
We have the panelists from this panel, and Timur is here from the first panel as well, and Ambassador Kusanayoff, if there's any
We have 9 minutes.
Well, we're kind of,
Just Jose, you just mentioned about that your system, or like not your system, the example where the car was hacked. So I think it's now cybersecurity is becoming a top priority, because now it's optimization and AI. And I think it's one of the, let's say, ways like to protect, we need to pay attention on cybersecurity. That's just a comment.
Yeah, definitely one of the main, challenges that we are facing as an industry, like cybersecurity, digitalization, decarbonization. That is so really continuous challenges. Our industry is like every time we advance, we face new challenges. But definitely, cybersecurity is one of them. I know naturally the mining industry is not so used to this kind of challenge, right? To compare with other industries quite they are quite familiar with this, but as miners, I think that we are not so used to be in touch with this kind of challenge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the floor? Nothing coming through in the chat?
No.
Okay, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, everyone, thank you. Thank you everyone who is online with us. I hope there are some survivors from Kazakhstan as well. It's very late night. I think it's around 2 o'clock in the night. Okay, thank you so much. This was a very productive working group. I think Darren and myself and the co-chair from Kazakhstan, we will be working on the report that will be submitted to the KCBC and presented at the plenary session in Toronto on the 3rd of March. So you will hear from us. Maybe we will come up with some questions and maybe something to elaborate to include on this report. I wanted to mention that all information that is kind of presented here today and the video record of this working group, everything will be available on our website. We will put it all together, post it, and let you know, send around the link, which you can use to access these materials. So now I would like to adjourn the meeting. We still have a few minutes to network. We actually left like half an hour. But we have this room until 12 o'clock. So please, if you would like to talk to each other.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Oh,
Thanks
thank
for
you.
attending.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah,
Oh, not at all.
It was very interesting. The first time that I heard about like the tax the green policy right now.
The banner on the screen.
All the sites need to achieve that in the next 5 years.
Sure.
Especially